Hi, I'm Tim from the Marathon Mates. On this episode, we're going to talk about everything virtual running, the good, the bad, and the downright horrible. For some runners, virtual running is the closest thing that they'll ever get to being at some of the big races around the world. But does it feel the same? Tonight, we're going to talk about our experiences with virtual running and discuss our thoughts on whether or not it's good for us. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the flying runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Welcome to episode number 61 of the Flying Runner podcast. On this episode, we're talking all things about virtual running. We'll share our experiences and tell you our thoughts about virtual running. But before we do that, let me introduce you to my marathon mates, Tony, Lucia, and Tara. Guys, how are you? And how's your week been? I'll start with you, Tony.
Okay, well, no park run for me on Saturday this week. I had a date with a couple of old schoolmates and we went out to see two of our most favourite bands from back in the day. I won't say exactly when back in the day was, but it was a 40th anniversary tour, so maybe that might give you a little bit of a hint. And it was such a great night. It was really good. It was just so cool to see them. But the interesting thing, Tim, and especially for you, because it's going to happen to you one day, I walked into the public bar where I was meeting my mates, and I looked around and I was surrounded by old people. And I thought, how did this happen? Why am I here? And then I suddenly realized that I'm one of those old people that, it was a great night. So had a bit of a sleep in on Saturday. I could have gone out to run. It wasn't through any sort of alcohol or playing up. It was just tiredness. So I thought, best be safe than sorry. But we got out on Sunday and ran our longest run since Gold Coast, and really pleased to say we got through 19 pretty easily, and more pleased to say that we've actually come out of it really well. So really good warm up, really good cool down. And today there was no soreness in the legs whatsoever. So 2 weeks out from Sydney. So that's given me a little bit more confidence of what we've got to do. So we'll see how we go. So what about you,
awesome.
Lucia?
Well, let's face it, I think I've been in taper for Sydney since Boston. So and so this weekend just gone was a shorter one for me, only about 13 Ks, but it was more testing the shoes that I'm going to wear on race day, because when I wore them on my 30K run, I got blisters. So I thought, okay, let's put some tape on the areas where it blistered, and just to make sure it didn't give me grief. So happy to say, didn't get any blisters. So I think I'll just have to tape my feet up like anything on race day, because the shoes are just super comfy. So very happy with those. Yeah, it was just a nice, easy weekend this weekend.
And how were they the Adidas Adi Zeros that you got?
Yes,
that you won.
Yes.
Yep. So did you notice anything different when you're running them with the carbon plate?
I'm personally a fan of the carbon plate, because I find for me, I probably don't use them to the best of their ability, just because I'm not a natural faster runner. But what I find for me is it helps me with recovery. So when I did my 30K, did not have any soreness, and then when I did my shorter one on Sunday, I could actually feel myself bouncing further and actually doing the sprints and feeling being kind of pushed forward. So so personally, I'm a fan of the carbon plates.
Yeah. I like my carbon plated shoes. I haven't worn them since Gold Coast, to be honest. I've just gone back into the old Saucony Tempest, which I just love as a nice, comfy stability shoe. But all my PBs that I did leading into Gold Coast were running a carbon plated super shoe. So I'm with you. I love them, but I think there is danger if people wear them all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm really intrigued to see, because research will be happening. We'll have physios and experts all over the place doing their own informal research when runners come in and say, why is your hip playing up? What shoes are you wearing? So we'll start to see some stuff coming out. I know that they have done some studies, but so I think if they're used in the way that they're meant to be used, as you say, for race day, get out there and give them a crack, and it will help you recover. My advice would be just to anyone listening, because I know that you don't wear them all the time. Don't wear them all the time, because I think we're still to find out exactly what these shoes are doing to us. I think so.
Yeah. And Tara, Tony's concert experience sounds a bit like our experience at Guns N' Roses a little while ago, and Paul McCartney.
And Billy Joel and Pearl Jam.
And Billy Joel.
No, not Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters. Oh my goodness, yes we are. I am getting old, aren't I? Yes. We did parkrun. Well, I didn't run parkrun. I volunteered. I was timekeeper at Bunyaville Parkrun, so I apologise to all those people who have got the wrong times. That's my fault.
Guess
talk
what?
Too much.
I was about to say Tara was talking at the time and missed the first 6 people over the finish line.
Hey,
that does not surprise me, Tim.
No, it's not the first time either.
No, so I don't know why I keep putting myself down as timekeeper, and I don't know why the Bunyaville people allow me to do this, but they do, and I keep doing it. So I apologise to all those people. Tim, you volunteered as well. You did first timers briefing, but then you ran it as well. Yeah. So, and then we did our long training run on Sunday. So we set off to do 25 Ks, and I had to run back to go to the loo. And so I ended up with an extra half a K, and I thought, I'm going to end up with 25 and a half Ks. I might as well just do 27. So but we'll do 27, end up with 27.7 Ks. So look, it's all distance in the legs, isn't it? So yeah.
I would have gone up to 28.
I did say that to Tim. So if we just do another 300 meters.
Yeah, it was getting a bit warm by then, Lucia. We went from our winter into our summer yesterday on Sunday, and it was instant for us in Queensland. It went from warm in winter to extremely hot in first day of spring. And what did we get up to? About 33 or 34 degrees.
Yeah, it was 33 by
yesterday.
The time we finished. Yep.
Bit of humidity, so a bit of smoke in the air from burn-offs in the area as well. So a little bit tricky conditions, but yeah, we had a bit of fun anyway, didn't we, Tara?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Now, Lucia, you've got some big news coming up regarding Sydney.
Yeah, so I've got some very exciting news. So for all our listeners, Thursday afternoon at the Expo, which is the 12th of September, I'm going to be interviewed on the main stage. The exact time is still to be confirmed, but it could be anywhere from around 3 till 4:30. Once I have exact timings, we'll post it online. So it'd be great for any of our listeners that are going to be at the marathon Thursday afternoon. Come past, say hi. Would be great to meet as many listeners as possible.
That is huge news. Well done, Lucia.
Yeah, well done. That's awesome.
Very excited.
And hopefully you can convince everyone that Sydney should be the 7th major. To save some of us Aussies some travel money, hey?
Well, ironically, the picture I've submitted is the one of me getting my 6-star medal in Boston. So I thought nothing. Surprisingly, not that one.
Sorry, for our listeners, that's me replicating Lucia finishing the Boston one.
Yeah. Which is one of the most joyous bits of video you will ever hope to see. So, yeah.
That is awesome news. Well, yeah, definitely catch up with Lucia if you're at the Expo on Thursday afternoon. So that's great news. A couple of quick ones before we move on as well. Shout out to our good friend Emma, who we ran into on the weekend over the Tedsmouth Bridge, where we run on our long runs. She's provided us with some listener feedback on some of the things she would like to hear in upcoming episodes. So yes, Emma, we've added them to the list, and you're going to hear them probably not in the next few episodes, but probably sometime early next year is where it's going to be at this stage. That's how far we're starting to plan out our episodes. Another shout out also goes to our good friend Victoria. I know, Lucia, you know Victoria as well, who loves listening to the podcast on Saturday mornings. It's now her go-to on a Saturday morning, and she especially loved last week's episode with Alice talking about the benefits of Pilates. And I've also got a lot of feedback. I've had some people reach out to me as well and talk to me about gels, listening to the discussion last week around Alice's marathon journey that she's taking and her queries that she had around gels or blocks or how to do nutrition. So we have done an episode before on nutrition, but maybe it's there's a need to do one specifically on gels and getting the right gels. Maybe, I don't know. We'll need to look at that in the future. But
the Team Alice page. Oh, sorry, Tim. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, no, you go, Tara.
I was just going to say the Team Alice page got a message today from Anne-Marie, who I think you know, Lucia, Anne-Marie Waycott. Maybe not.
No.
She's going to be doing New York as well. But yeah, she was asking us about our advice on gels. So yeah, highly recommend listening to that episode. But yeah, it is one of those things that it's a personal preference. With that, but if you want to start out with gels, we do recommend something like a Morton or something that's a bit easier on the stomach and has very little flavor and not a lot of sweetness. So yeah. Oh, sorry, Tim. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. No. All good. That's all good. So that's it. So now it's that time of the week where we talk about the news. Tony, what's been happening around the world of running over the past few days?
Yeah, it feels really weird always taking over the news segment when Tim's hosting because he's already done all the work. So I'm going to throw some stuff in that he's unaware of that isn't in the run sheet. First bit of news is we have been pretty humbled and stoked about some of the rankings that we're seeing the Flying Runner podcast hit and the Australian Apple podcast charts. We've been top 10 now, floating in and out for the last 2 weeks, which is just incredible. And when you think about the running channels, For the Kudos, all of these podcasts that are just huge, and then the humble little Flying Runner is floating around every now and again and beating them, and then not, it's just amazing. But we've had another milestone this week. We've actually ranked in the top 200 Apple Podcasts Australian in the overall sports category, which is like you're up against AFL, rugby league, cricket, the wide world of sports, Fox Sports, all of the just huge media companies. And once again, there's our little humble podcast just chipping away. So a huge thank you to everyone. We don't know how we do it. To be honest, I don't know what makes up the rankings, but whatever it is, keep doing it, right? So just amazing.
Very humbled. When you think about some of those media organizations and how many millions of dollars they spend every year on their podcasts, whether they're producing them, the salaries they pay to their staff and the hosts, and then the advertising that they put into it, and we literally put $0 into it and not a lot of time, and we're doing that well. So thank you to all of our listeners. It's really amazing. It obviously shows we're hitting the right mark as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wonder what we would do if we doubled our marketing budget, Tim. But
from zero to double zero.
Now, this piece of news got the marathon mates talking over the weekend. And for those, hopefully you're aware, but the original, very first ever park run was held at a place called Bushy. It's the Bushy Park Run in the United Kingdom. On the weekend, it celebrated its 1,000th park run. and it's the first park run to achieve a milestone. Now, a little bit of a background here. The week before, they achieved 999, of course, which is the digit before 1,000. And that was the first time that people could include 999 chasing what they call a Nelson in parkrun, which was something that I did not know about. But 2,000 people showed up the week before at 999 to get the Nelson. Fancy that, which was awesome for them. However, on the weekend just gone, if you thought 2,000 was a lot of people at parkrun, how does 6,000 sound? They had 6,000 people at the Bushy parkrun. Now, Tim and Tara, I know you've been there before, and it's typically like, I think it's a regular event to get over 1,000 to 1,500. But 6,000, seriously? I've read some reports where, they had 6 finishing shoots. Some people were in there for up to 45 minutes to get their tokens scanned. Tara, to me, I think this is insane, having that amount of people at a parkrun. What were your recollections when you ran Bushy with, the normal amount of maybe 1,500?
Yeah, so look, Bushy it's a special park run. The starting part where you start is so wide. Like you could probably put maybe 100 people wide along the start line. It is so wide. So obviously the faster ones must have gone at the front because that's what happened with us. But to me, I said to Tim, I wonder if the people that had started, because there's some very fast people there, and it is a fast course, I'm wondering if the people that started had actually finished before the last people would cross the start line. Because, I don't know. It's something I'd have to look up, but it's pretty amazing to have that many people. That's bigger than the Brisbane Marathon amount of numbers that we get. So that is a huge amount of people for a race that's not paid for or anything like that. 125 volunteers for this one, but we loved Bushy. When we were there, there was maybe 3 or 4 finishing shoots as well, and we did wait in line for quite a while, just chatting to the people around us. And they've got an amazing system. They know how to run a park run extremely well. They've got it down like a fine-tuned machine. It's very, very well oiled. There's no mucking around with them. They know what they're doing. So
the finisher shoots, the way they work, sorry, Tara, is you cross the finish line and they funnel you into a shoot, and they line you all up in order. And once they get to the end of the shoot, they close that shoot off and then start following people into the shoot next to you and then into the next one. And then they start just pulling out in order the people that come through. So to scan them in as they walk past. So quite a unique finish that they have there, but it's very well organised. And I'm sure with 6,000, they still haven't processed the results yet because it was that many people there. I just had a quick look then, but I'm sure they would have been able to cope pretty well. I've seen that they wrote down, because they finished, they ran out of finish tokens. Yeah. They actually had to handwrite everyone's barcode number, their finishing position and their name. So somebody spent time doing that, and it looked like it was all very neat and very regimental, and they had proper amounts of bits of paper there for it to be able to do it. So quite awesome how they were able to cope and manage. And it would have been, and it is, a world record number of participants at a parkrun event.
It's just crazy. 125 volunteers, and one would get the feeling that they were going to be pretty busy. So, but even the week before, the slowest time the week before with the 2,000 runners was 1 hour and 10 minutes, Tara. So maybe, I don't know, how long did it take you guys to get through that starting line?
It's fairly fast because it has got such a wide start line. It didn't take us that long to do it, but we only had maybe 1,500 when we were doing it. So but it didn't ever feel too crowded on course, did it, Tim? It was
It's like
Yep.
a school cross country where everyone starts in a fairly wide area and you all funnel into a point about 100 meters down the
Yeah.
start line a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's how they sort of do it there. It's a very broad starting line. I'd say there's probably can be more than 100 people wide along the start. And, you know, I think they cleared the starters within about 2 or 3 minutes from what I saw of one of the videos there.
Incredible.
So, yeah, just an
Yeah.
awesome experience. And if you can ever get to London and you're looking to do a park run,
Go and
make
do
the effort
Bushy.
to go to Bushy. It is a very special park run indeed.
On a slightly less positive note, there have been some scammers, and I guess this is, I suppose, one of those things that are going to happen as running continues to increase in popularity. And this particular one is all based around the Montreal Marathon. The Montreal Marathon is sold out, and the scarcity of the bibs are attracting people that we can only call fraudsters. So these scammers compete. They fundamentally create a profile, whether it's on any of the social media channels, but traditionally a Facebook, and they will go out and they will offer a bib to the Montreal Marathon. So, and basically, I've got Tim's done his research, and I've got the process on what they do. So, they scour social media to make as much money as possible between now and the start signal, which will propel potentially some 27,000 runners. So, the scam is offering a bib that doesn't exist in a Facebook post or in response to runners that are desperate for to run. And we see this all the time in the majors. People want a bib and they'll put requests into groups saying, has anyone got a bib, or to anyone unable to run, etc., etc. And we see it all the time. But when, in this case, when a potential buyer comes forward, the seller demands, some sort of money transfer of $100 before transferring the remainder. So some stand a fake proof of registration, of course, and once the money is transferred, you will never ever see it again, and the scam fraudster will never fulfill their part of the contract. And this particular organization that did some research around this, they contacted about 20 suspicious sellers via Facebook messaging. How do you recognize them? Their profile photo is often a few days or a few weeks old. Their place of education or residence often, in this case, had nothing to do with Quebec, which is where the Montreal Marathon was running. Only have a handful of connections, and many of them sell more than one bib, some up to 10, and sometimes to multiple races. So some fraudsters take care to model their profile on a real or a registered runner, and we see people hijacking or cloning people's Facebook profiles all the time. But there's a real reason why people do this. So scammers, in this particular case, the company doing the research, they sent the registration confirmation with a postal address and the date of the transaction. And when this organization contacted the actual real runner from which the Facebook profile was cloned, actually confirmed that that's hit the real address. Although Montreal Marathon said that everyone's details and data was secure. So there's some real dodgy stuff happening here. So the Montreal Marathon assured the press that it had not been the victim of data leaks, but it's quite concerning that somehow for the registered bid number that they've been able to get the details, the address. So just first up, be careful when people say they've got a bib to sell. But secondly, let's just call it out for what it is. This is just really horrible. And we see more and more people attempting to scam people in everyday walks of life. And we're now seeing it in a sport that we all love. And it's based around scarcity and popularity of the running brigade. So I'd welcome your thoughts, guys. What's your thoughts on this whole process?
I personally think it's a pretty low act because running has just taken off in the last 18 months, 2 years. That races that normally wouldn't sell out are selling out, and people are just finding those opportunities. It's amazing how often you'll see, like, on the various Facebook groups, oh, this person scammed me, like, and then they take a picture of their profile, post it. It's just crazy. Like, probably the best bit of advice I would give: only buy it from the official race website, and buy entries these days as soon as they go on sale, because as I said, races are selling out like never before.
100% great advice.
Yeah.
Tara?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Lucia. It's really sad that something that we love doing and we want to do, and if you don't get an entry fast enough, you are subject to this possible scam. And I was just thinking about how I got Patrick's half marathon entry for Gold Coast, and thinking that could have easily been a scam. And I actually did a lot of research into the person first before I paid her the money for the ticket. It wasn't somebody I knew. It was actually through a Facebook group. However, it is a very reputable Facebook group that I am on, and it is somebody, when I've gone in and looked at the group posts and stuff prior, I knew she was a real runner. She had a Facebook profile that had been around for a long time, and all of her profile pictures were many, many years of bibs with her running marathons or half marathons previously for several years. So I'm like, I think I'm okay here. But yes, it could have easily have been a scam as well. But yeah, her Facebook profile was an older one, and she had posted on this group for many times over several years. So
yeah,
yep.
I guess we wanted so much for it to be real, and sometimes that we overlook some of those warning signs. Tim, your final thoughts?
Yeah, when I read this and when I saw the article, I wanted to talk about it because it is something that's happening a lot out there, and it's not just in Montreal. It's every marathon has got scammers out there, and even I know just there's scammers out there that will put up false links to live coverages of video of marathons as well, and you click on that, and all of a sudden your Facebook account's hacked. It does make you wonder about, we're quite open with the sort of races that we're going to. Scammers could listen to that and then, use our names and our race entry details essentially to create a false race entry. So that worries me a little bit as well. And I'm not sure, other than doing your research, there's not much else. The race event organisers appear to be trying to do as much as they can to cut this out, but once they've sold their entries to somebody, they're not really responsible for the secondhand sales of those entries and what happens afterwards. So ideally, I'd love it if the organisers would say, if you've got an entry, we'll buy it back off you, and then we'll resell it. And that would be the ideal way to stop these scammers. You're then not buying from other people; you're buying directly from the race organisers. You get your money back, fair and reasonable, and then they sell it, or the race organisers sell it, and whatever they sell it for, less an administration fee, you get the rest of the money for whatever they sell it for. And it's probably the only way to do it. But then that means race fees are going to go up. When we talked to Phil a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about the cost that they incur putting on races, and every time they go on the internet, it costs more money. And so having somebody there to handle resale of entries would be another administration cost that we'd all end up paying for in our entries somewhere down the line anyway. So I don't know what the solution is, other than, as you guys have said, really just do your research. If the person on there looks like he's fairly new to Facebook, has got a recent photo and is probably not associated with running and doesn't have many friends or followers, he's not a real runner.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it for the news.
Thanks, Tony. Now let's focus on our topic of the week. I don't know if this is going to be a long section or a very short section, so I'm gonna get started, and we're gonna talk about virtual running. I'm gonna ask the questions tonight, and I'm gonna hand it over to you guys to answer the questions. So I'm gonna start off with guys, and I'll work around the panel. I'll work around to my left, that way, left, to Lucia, and then up to Tony and around to Tara. But so I'll start off with you, like Lucia. And what's your experience with virtual running? And I'll ask the same question of everyone else. And have you done races or runs virtually? And if you did, which ones?
So I've probably done about 2 or 3, but the 2 that I can remember, one was for when Sydney was called Blackmores. During COVID, obviously it didn't happen. So I did the half marathon, but no surprise, I didn't actually get to the 21 Ks. I got to the 18 Ks. I was in Centennial Park, and there was an ice cream truck. So I stopped, got in an ice cream. I'm like, no, bugger it, I'm done. Which for those that know me wouldn't be surprised at that comment at all. But the one that really sticks out for me was in 2020. I was convinced that COVID was going to be a passing thing. I'm like, yep, I'm still going to Chicago. Obviously that didn't happen, but I didn't want to waste the training I'd done. So I thought, why not do a virtual? So I decided to do 12 laps around Centennial Park in Sydney, which ironically is part of the Sydney Marathon course. I thought, great idea, let's do it. But how I did it was I actually had like a spreadsheet, and I had people actually put down what lap they were going to run with me. So I always had people with me on every single lap. Some laps I had 1 person, some laps I had 6, some laps I had 10. One friend who said, oh yeah, I'll come do 2 laps with you, ended up doing a half marathon with me. So, and my car was kind of like my unofficial pit stop. So I had streamers, balloons. Each time I'd set off for a lap, I'm like, okay, lap 1 started at X, Y, and Z. The plan went out the window after the first lap. I just didn't care about the times in the end. It was just, for me, mentally, I had to get the marathon done. It was a hot day. So after each lap, I'd stop for a couple of minutes. Like I literally had everything in the boot of the car. I had snacks, I had water, but it was just so good getting it done and still thinking, okay, yes, I did achieve it. So it was, yeah, my experience has been mixed.
Okay. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, once again, I think COVID opened up this concept of virtual running. It was probably negligible previous. And, the first one we did was we were due to go to London in 2020. And of course, that didn't happen. But they ran the virtual marathon. And basically, by running the virtual marathon, they actually sent the medals that they'd already obviously paid for and ordered. So we got the full deal. We got the full 2020 London marathon. But they did give you a sticker to go over it that said running it my way or something. So, of course, we did, because we didn't feel right keeping it as just the marathon medal. But and that one wasn't bad, to be honest. They had it linked to an app on your phone, and as you're running the virtual marathon, as you were coming up into some of those sites that you see during the marathon, you had someone who had run the marathon, many of the elite runners, people that are known for it, were suddenly telling about what you were seeing. So as you 10K in, you're coming up to Cuddy Sark, or so coming close to the half marathon, you're coming over the London Bridge. So they're walking through what you would see, which I thought was pretty novelty.
Very cool. Yeah.
But the reality is that you still couldn't visualize it because you still had never done it. Now, if someone had done it, yes, you could visualize it, but for people that hadn't. So I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that one. And of course, we got a lot of bling. We got the medal, we got the shirt, we got it all. So they shipped that out. And then we did, and I'm sure it must have been, I was just trying to look it up when that was. And I'm sure that must have been like October, because the London Marathon is traditionally early part of the year, and then they would have cancelled it then and pushed it back to October, hoping that COVID was all over and done with. And then, but I'm sure it was October we did that. And then we backed it up and we did the virtual New York that year as well. So we ran 2 marathons in 2020 and they were both virtual. But since then, haven't really touched it, haven't really gone down that path. We were really, November here is obviously quite hot. So November was a killer. I think fundamentally Sharon and I just both did not enjoy that particular one. The thing with New York virtual that year was you could print up all the mileage markers.
Oh, yeah.
And you could have little signs when you're coming into, you know, the boroughs as you're coming through. So that's all right if you'd mapped out a 42K course and got out there the day before and whacked them all in. But you know, I think we've got a couple of photos there that, you know, but apart from that, yeah, I mean, I haven't touched them since, but you know, they were really good virtuals to do because at least the organizers put in some effort.
Yeah. And Tara, what about us? What's our experience been like?
Yeah, I agree with Tony. It was a good way for us to continue our running journey. We had planned to go to Tokyo. We'd done all the training in 2020 and it got canned probably about a week and a half out. So we were like, oh, okay, well, we've done all this training. We might as well do something. And I think there was a thing that was called Run the World, or
something like that.
Something
it wasn't
like
Run
that.
the World.
It wasn't Run the World like what Travis does, like Run Down Under or anything like that. But it was a challenge that you could set yourself of running 62Ks or 42Ks. Sorry, it was 42Ks over a weekend. And we're like, oh, well, we'll make it a bit different and we'll do a half marathon every day over that weekend. So we started on the Friday night, did a half marathon on Friday night out at Sandgate. I think the Saturday morning we did one at maybe Mitchelton.
Yep.
And then Sunday we did it out through Brisbane City. So we ended up with like 63.3 kilometres because we're just crazy like that. And we got a little wooden medal for that. That was quite nice. And it sort of kept us motivated to want to keep going. And then the Outback Marathon it was Anzac Day. Then Anzac Day promoted an Anzac Day run. So we decided we'd do that because the money went to the veterans. So we were good with that. And that was only about maybe 5K, 10K. Can't remember. It wasn't a marathon. And then Outback Marathon, we're doing a virtual marathon. So Tim and I are like, well, let's do it. You know, we'll support the traveling fit companies and go for that. And that was a really cold, wet, rainy day. It was in the middle of winter, and I think that was the wettest run I have ever had in my life. It felt like little icicles hitting my face when the rain was hitting it. But we didn't even get a medal for that one. We just were stupid enough to do that one for just the running. And we did another one that was called the Halloween Chase or something, I think it was. And I think there was another, maybe a half marathon or something. Nice little pumpkin medal for that. But look, it kept us motivated to run when there was no races on. So to me, virtual running, yes, it's running on your normal training tracks. You don't have the crowds with you, but it does keep you motivated. And a lot of people don't actually like that big crowd environment. They still want the bling, but a lot of people don't actually want that big crowd environment. And there is still a lot of virtual races around, and I know that that's a good way to get into the majors as well. So they have virtual races that will actually permit you to get into the majors by completing their virtuals. Yes, Lucia, there's one of our examples already. So they definitely have their place. I think you have to have the right mindset, though, to want to complete them.
Yeah. So it sounds like you all enjoyed them somewhat, and it sounds like you thought they were okay at the time for what they were, but they're probably not your favorite cup of tea. Tara, you've talked about mindset. So I'll start with you, Lucia. Did your mindset differ because you were doing a virtual run, therefore you treated it a bit more like a training run or more like a race? How was your mindset? And I know there's other ones out there, like Run Disney has this very special place around virtual running as well, and they go to another level where everyone has this inner community where they're all talking to one another on Run Disney websites and things like that. But
yeah, I'm personally not the biggest.
your mindset, how did your
Yeah.
mindset change when you're doing a virtual run?
So I think because the mindset was that I didn't have to worry about a time, that like I could take as long as I wanted. It really didn't matter. Like for me, it was more finishing it. If I didn't have the people with me running, I would have pulled the pin halfway, because doing 12 laps around Centennial Park, not my best idea. So I think if I were to do something like that again, I'd have to somehow mix it up. So it was, I think the mindset for me on the virtual runs is a lot more challenging, because the start and finish line, you can do it however you want to do. And for me, I thrive off the crowd support. For me, that's what really brings me home in a lot of the big races. So I think for me, that lack of crowd support and just thinking, oh yeah, if I want to stop for half an hour and have a chat with someone, or if not have an ice cream, I can do it because it ain't going to make a difference. So I find that for me, for my races, I need to have them structured. So I did struggle a bit with the mindset piece, but I think what got me through the 12 lap one was having the people with me, because they were pushing me through it.
Yeah.
What about you, Tony?
Well, interestingly, I have now just found my virtual London marathon. It was the 4th of the 10th, 2020. And it is by far the slowest one we've ever done. So, but the interesting thing, and talking about mindset, so we were geared up to do it. They even sent a little bib that you could put on your shirt, which we didn't, because Sharon doesn't like that sort of thing. So, and we were running around the Cleveland area here in Brisbane. And while we were doing that, my memory serves me correctly, there was at least 2 to 3 other people doing the same thing, the virtual London. We had a 24-hour window to get it done. And it was just, that was the cool bit, because because they wore their bibs, so we knew that they were doing it. But yeah, mindset is really challenging on a virtual, and hence the reason 7 hours 13 minutes, I think, for the virtual London. So I keep saying to Sharon keeps saying 7 hours cut off for Sydney, and I say I don't want to be out there for 7 hours, Sharon. So at least 45 minutes earlier than that, but which isn't a great thing. But anyway, yeah, I think mindset, you've got to be geared up to it. In the ones that we have done, there was some level of, hey, let's make it a bit of fun. We can do this. It was a personal challenge, and we did it. But it's. I'm not lining up to do one again very soon, because I just don't know if, now that we're back racing, whether it's going to even come close to comparing to what it's like.
Yeah. And Tara?
Yeah, look, same as Tony. When we did our Outback one, there was a lot of people actually we had the same thing where we had a 24-hour period to do it in. But there was actually quite a lot of other people with the bibs on as well. And Tim and I did put the bib on. And there was actually a few other people out there, wasn't there, Tim? But where we did that virtual marathon is also our normal training track. So there was a lot of our friends out there as well. And when they realised what we were doing, they would cheer us on and, keep us going as well, which was really, really nice. And it was terrible, terrible weather. So I was surprised to see anybody out there at that day. But yeah, we did have a few people out there with the marathon bibs on as well, didn't we, Tim? That we saw up towards the Scarborough end. So, yeah.
Yeah. For us, it was a bit weird because it was just a training run essentially, and it felt very much like a training run because we're running the same course, albeit we were going a little bit further on our route than we normally would. But the mindset is hard because you're thinking, well, it's a race, but it's not really a race because you're not seeing anyone on the course to compete with, and you're just running like for nothing really. The times don't matter, and
Yeah.
it's just like a normal training run essentially. So it was hard for us with that mindset. I guess we had each other, which helped, and we got each other through it. But it wasn't like we were chasing a cutoff or a particular time, so it was hard from a mindset point of view.
I think as
Yeah.
well for us, it was a case that we didn't know when real running was going to ever resume again. So we weren't to know that it was going to take another 2 years for us to actually be able to race in a race again. So we were still training. It was a good excuse for us to still train, as if so we were going to get into a race again soon, if that makes sense. So that was what my mindset was, is like, might not be the best idea today, but it will get me through when I do get to go racing again.
Yeah, and interestingly, with the mindset scenario, most of us run for the bling. And what was really exciting about the London one was we knew we were getting the medal. The New York virtual that same year was a pale, insignificant compared with the real version. So, and very clearly stated virtual. So if the bling is your motivator, you're probably not going to get motivated by some of the medals that, if any medals, are offered on virtual running. Geez, we're painting a great picture, aren't we?
I would dispute that, because there are a number of companies out there that specialize. I think they're medal companies that specialize in virtual running, and they have some really fancy medals out there for the virtual runs, which is what got us suckered in for, I think, the Anzac Day run and the Halloween run.
Okay.
Was where the medals were pretty cool. So the Halloween
the Halloween one is amazing. Yep.
Yeah, and it glows in the dark, and there's whole companies out there that specialize. And as I said, I think they're medal manufacturers. But so on that, it is obviously important for most of us around the medals.
Yeah.
And Tony, you've touched on it, but Lucia, does it bring the same sense of joy when you look back on the medals? Like, do you look at the medal there and go, yeah, I've run that distance, there's my medal, when you compare it to, say, a Boston or a New York or a Sydney or something like that?
This is going to sound really bad, but no, because the medal wall, if you can call it a medal, that we got when we did the Chicago virtual one, it was more of a medallion that was tiny. I'm like, so I've just put myself through all that, and all I'm getting is this. So to me, it doesn't mean the same when you're doing a virtual one and you get a medal versus an in-person, because I think for me, the in-person one, for me, it feels like that a lot more blood, sweat, and tears go into it, even if you're traveling, like just the work to get there. So it does, for me, it doesn't mean as much as an in-person race.
Yeah.
I guess you haven't had that experience with the start line either, with the adrenaline pumping and the noise and the music and the hype up beforehand.
Yep. You just get out there and start. And so a message to all those companies doing virtual runs: make sure your bling is good. Because
yes, it's got to look good. But on top of that, I think for most of us, it's a training run, and therefore it's not like a real race experience where you have a taper beforehand, you get yourself hyped up, you sleep, you sleep, have a nervous sleep the night before, you get to the start line in the dark or on a bus ride or whatever to the start line. And then you got that adrenaline pumping, and it's not the same feeling as a normal race. Therefore, the sense of achievement at the end of it is not the same, because you haven't put in a big training block with a specific goal a lot of the time. So do you think, apart from maybe improving the bling and adding some extra goodies in, what other things do you think race organisers could do to improve, I guess, that sense of joy or that overall experience that you get from a virtual race?
That's a tough one, because the virtual races can mean different things to different people. But I think probably the big thing is definitely the medal. Make it as if it's a proper in-person race, and then similar to what London did when they did their virtual, give people things to print, because I think London also did like a finishing line banner, like as much as they can to make it similar to an in-person event.
Yeah.
I guess Sorry, Tony. Yep.
And find some way to connect people that are doing it, so whether it's like a Facebook group where people can say, I'm going to start down at Cleveland, or I'm going to start at Sandgate, or and just really testing the memory banks here. Lucia, maybe you can help, but I think when they were doing the London virtual, it was all planned initially to be run everyone was to do it at the same time, starting at the official time of the London Marathon. And I think it was only once there was a little bit of a backlash around that, because that would mean that we were going to be getting up at like 2:00 in the morning, or whatever it is, whatever the time zone was, that they changed it to you need to do it in a 24-hour. Did I get that right? Did I remember?
Yeah, because I remember at one point, because I had a friend, so I think my virtual was 1 week, and then I had a friend that came and did a few laps. She was doing London the following weekend, and they had to do it within a certain 24-hour period. But I think for the guys here, it had to be done by, it was a random time. Like, I don't think it was like let's say 23:59 on the Sunday. I think it had to be done a bit earlier than that, because I think they tried to. Yes, I think it was a 24-hour period. So let's say from maybe 4:00 Saturday to 4:00 Sunday. I remember it being bizarre. I'm like, okay, that's a bit strange.
Yeah, there was a couple of weird things happening around that time, but yeah, and I just think they've got to find some way to, whether it's, and the reason why I thought about starting at the same time is that could actually benefit people by sharing socially. So here I go, I'm just about to kick off, and you go on the feed and there's lots and lots of people just about to start at the same time, but that's pretty hard when you're looking at all the global time zones. But yeah, I'm sure that people out there doing virtual runs are doing it for a reason, whether it's to get some extra opportunities to go into ballots and whatnot. I'm sure they're doing it for a reason. So I don't necessarily know how else companies can help integrate that whole virtual experience. So apps are good. Having someone in your ear saying you're crossing the Tower Bridge right now is good. But as I said, if you haven't been there before, it would certainly mean something different to me now to run the virtual London Marathon, because I've run the course and I can visualize it. So,
Tara, were you going to say something?
I was just thinking, similar to what Tony was thinking, is I know on my treadmill, I have iFit on my treadmill, and I've actually run the London Marathon, the Boston Marathon, New York Marathon previously on my treadmill. So I already had a pretty good feeling about what the course was going to feel like, what it was going to look like, what the crowd support was going to be due to running it on my treadmill. That maybe just even having a video of somebody driving the course so that you can watch it again afterwards, or before you run your marathon, and then have the voice in your head so you can sort of picture it, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. That maybe might be the other option to make it a bit more as a real feeling type thing.
Augmented reality glasses like the Apple glasses, which actually show and match your pace and show the vision of where you're running through at that pace would be good. But anyway, there's a bit to do, I think, in that space. But what was I going to say here? So I think there is a place still for virtual runs. There are obviously people out there that do them, as Tara said earlier on, who struggle to attend some of those events, or who have lower levels of fitness, etc. Do you think that virtual race times should count towards actual race time entries?
No, because there are so many underlying factors. Like, for instance, if I take my Chicago one, I could have lied with the time if I wanted to. Like, unless you somehow submit proof of time and a valid proof of time, there was nothing stopping me, because we actually had to submit our times. I could have submitted a time half the time than what I did it in. To me, it's that there's no accountability. So I don't think it should be counted for, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example, like the Melbourne Marathon Legends, for instance.
Yep.
I don't think virtual ones should be counted the same as an in-person one.
100%, and you can get somebody else to run that course, or somebody else who's run that time on that day in a much faster time, and you can submit their results. And how do they know it's not your watch? Does that make sense? Like, even if you're using a Garmin proof of, how do they know it's your watch? How do they know it's you that's done it? So I don't agree. I don't think you should be submitting virtual run times.
Yeah, taking on your comment, Tim, it really is a training run, and you've got no timing match. You've got you can't. It just cannot be done.
What's to stop me swapping my bib with somebody else on a race and doing the same thing?
True.
Well, nothing. But it's a harder thing to do on a race than it is on a virtual run.
Yeah. Cool. All right, we'll start to wrap it up here, but last question quickly, and I think I know the answers, but based on everything we've talked about tonight, would you do another virtual run or race again?
Computer would probably say no.
It would
Tony?
need to be a pretty cool, compelling reason to do it. But at this stage, I would unlikely do another virtual.
My computer's the same as Lucia's.
So
Now-
here's a tip for our metal manufacturers out there and these virtual race organisers. You've got to come up with something to get people to do these things, I guess, and something a bit more enticing.
Now, can I just quickly circle back to what I announced at the start of the show about me appearing at the expo? So I've just had the time confirmed. So I'm going to be on the main stage at the expo from 3:40 p.m. till 4 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th of September. So if any of the podcast friends are going to be there, feel free to come and listen to me and say hi afterwards.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect.
And make sure you
Perfect
get
time.
some selfies so that we can put them on the webpage and on the Instagram and Facebook, please.
Perfect time, 3:30 to 4 on the Thursday. So you pick the kids up from school and dash into the expo and then come and see Lucia. Perfect.
Now, guys, just before we finish up for the week, this is my favourite part of the episode. We always get a tip from Tim. So, Tim, what's the tip this week?
All right, thanks, Lucia. So despite everything that you guys have said tonight, I'm going to go for the opposite and say I think there is a place for virtual running, especially for those who struggle to afford the sport and the races. I know there's lots of people out there that love to do what we do. They'd love to do it, but they just cannot afford it. They struggle to even afford shoes, and keep their shoes up to date. So for those people who have some issues with cost or have some health issues or pacing issues or don't think they're going to be able to make a certain pace for a certain event, virtual running is a good place for them and for those people as well. It's a great way for them to have involvement in an event, to feel like they've participated without having to be there in person. For me, it has its place. Exactly as you guys have said, it's not something that is my cup of tea, but if it's something that helps others enjoy the sport of running, then it's a good thing. To make it easier for those who are virtual running, you can do them on treadmills. And as Tara sort of alluded to before, there are plenty of YouTube videos, thousands of YouTube videos out there of point of view races where people have strapped a camera to themselves and have the course in front of them. And it's a good way to make you feel like you're there in some form of augmented reality where you're looking at a screen while you're running and literally are able to almost feel like you're part of the race, even though you're not. So if that sort of running appeals to you, or if it's something that you can get into, there are plenty of virtual runs around the world. Some of the more popular ones are the Run Disney races, which we've said. There are virtuals and have been virtuals for New York and London. I think they still exist in some form or shape.
Yeah.
But there are also other virtual companies out there, and that's all they specialize in is virtual runs around the world. So give it a try if it's something you haven't done before, and make your own decisions. Just because we don't like it doesn't mean it's all that bad, but it does have its place, and I do suggest people give it a go. How's that sound? All right, this episode is about to end, but before we do that, Tara, what is happening next week?
So for next week's show, Tony and Lucia are packing the bags and getting ready to run the Sydney Marathon. So, well, Lucia doesn't have to pack her bags to go very far. She gets on a train or a bus and goes to the start line, or she could probably walk to the start line from her house.
It's a long way to the start line, isn't it? North Sydney.
Even I've got limits.
And it's a good warm-up for you. But Tony, yes, you were definitely packing your bags and you were definitely getting on a plane. So we're going to have a chat to them about their strategies for the race. We're going to hear from them about the race itself and what to expect at the expo, apart from Lucia having a good chat to everybody. So I want to hear about Tony's expo thoughts, apart from Lucia's wonderful presentation, and we're going to also get you guys to highlight some of the key people to keep an eye out when it comes to the spectacular finishing shoot at the Sydney Opera House.
I am
As
so
usual,
looking forward to that.
I betcha when you see that Harbour Bridge and the finishing shoot in the Opera House, it's going to be the best feeling ever. Yep, absolutely. So it'll be a good one if we can get that for the 7th star. So as usual, it will not be an episode to be missed. Thank you very much.
I know I shouldn't talk about it because it is next week's episode, but out of the 6 majors and the finishes, where would you rate the Opera House as a finish out of the 6?
I'm going to put it in the top 3.
There you go. That's spectacular. We'll talk more about it next week anyway. But it's a pretty impressive sight, I would imagine. That sparkling blue water, the white sails of the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge up in the background off to the left. It would be pretty spectacular.
Hard to beat.
Anyway, yeah. Thank you, Tara. That wraps up our episode tonight. I'd like to thank my marathon mates for joining me tonight. Thanks, guys. And as usual, we'll catch up again next week when we do this all over again. As always, we can't say anything but thank you to you, our loyal listeners, and we ask you to continue to join in and listen to us. We are amazed, as we said earlier on, about the numbers that we're getting and how they're steadily increasing. We love hearing your feedback, so please, if you like this episode, like it on the service that you're listening to it on. Leave some comments. You can even send us comments through our social media pages on Instagram or Facebook, or send us a message through Messenger. Just search for the Flying Runner podcast. As usual, the episode is available on Spotify, YouTube, and audio will be available on Apple and Amazon and most other popular podcast platforms. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Flying Runner podcast. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.